Hey again. Today we're going to look just for a few minutes at another sect that is an offshoot of Hinduism, known as Sikhism. Um, again, this is kind of an unusual one because it's not purely an offshoot of Hinduism, but kind of a blending of two religions that are there. Um, a little bit on the background and history. Sikh comes from the Sanskrit word Sisya and the Pali word Sikha, both of them meaning disciple. The Sikhs are known as the disciples of the 10 gurus. They began with Guru Nanak in the 1500 and ended in Gobind Rai Singh in 1708. So that's the interesting thing about Sikhism. It's a relatively recent sect that only came into being really, once again, you can see in the 15th, 16th century. And so this has only been around for a shorter period of time, and you'll see how that happened here in a moment. There are approximately 26 million Sikhs in the world today, and there seem to be more than that, but that's because they're so incredibly noticeable. If there's a Sikh in your town, you've seen him. If there's a Sikh in an airport, you see him because of the distinct way that they dress. A little bit about the background and history. Now, see, this is the thing that's interesting about it. The reason it only happened in the 16th century was that it's actually a reform movement that sought to bring together what they saw as the best of, basically the best of Hinduism and Islam with a little touch of Christianity blended in with there. And they kind of created this little blended faith and created and called it Sikhism. Guru Nanak actually made the comment, there is no Hindu, there is no Muslim. And so he was claiming that this new religion was going to absorb both of those religions into it. One of the primary things that's very important to the Sikhs is the Adi Granth. It was developed supposedly through visions that Guru Nanak had, and it's his words that he wrote. It's a sacred book. It's kept in a very holy place there in their meeting place. It is not just kept out. I mean, it's not commonly available to most people, and it's kept with such reverence that it's almost worshipped, which is interesting because one of the things that Guru Nanak taught was that there should be no idol worship. He absorbed the lack of idol worship from Islam. And so he got rid of all the idols that were involved in Hinduism. But you can see there's some Hindu things that he did keep as well. The Sikh is the Khalsa is the Sikh military fraternity. They're one of the better known groups in the world. The Sikhs were known to be powerful warriors. They were actually brought in by different countries to fight on their behalf. One of the things that you can see, once again, you can see that that head covering that they wore. That's one of their distinctives. Often that head covering, as you saw in that very first picture, often the head covering is bright orange. And even in this picture, where we're showing the kirpan, the two-edged dagger, you can see that he has a touch of his orange turban showing even under the black there. But they kept their hair and beard uncut. There's a particular comb that they include in there, a particular steel bracelet that they're required to wear that has some words on it, a special pair of undergarments that they wear, and then they also will carry the kirpan, the two-edged dagger, to the point. And I believe that in some places it's allowed for them to even carry that onto an airplane because it's considered a religious object. Their religious services are interesting because they don't have a formal priesthood. There is no particular group of people these are the ones who must perform the services. A little bit more like a Protestant service in the fact that any given person can stand up and be the person that week who is going to be speaking. Now, we often have pastors, and we have that pastor who is a set-aside person that we say. But in reality, if the pastor's gone, one of the board members could go up and conduct a service if need be. There is nothing special about that pastor that they have to be there in order for the service to happen, and that's the same thing. Any qualified Sikh can lead through it. They will have hymns and prayer and scripture reading. They have a sermon There's actually what's called the communal dinner that's kind of similar to our communion, but the communal dinner is the sharing of food, but then the communion rite is similar to Christian communion, but it doesn't represent the same things and such. But like I said, it's kind of odd. I've talked to people who've attended a Sikh service, and they said they felt like, okay, it's all happening in another language, but it felt a little bit like the order of service that we would be familiar with in a traditional Protestant service. Another things that are very, very important, though, is along with the religious services that take place each week, there's also repetition of the Satnam. Now, it is taught that the repetition of the Satnam is essential for salvation. It's part of the Mool mantra that's repeated every day by Sikhs. But the Satnam is the most important part. Satnam is, it's a combination of the word Sat, that means true and everlasting, and the word Nam, that means name. And in this instance, combined together, it's the words whose name is truth. And oftentimes it's referring to God as the name of God is truth and everlasting. But it's once again, this is where it crosses back over into the idea of Hinduism, because you can see it's this weird blend. But it crosses back over in Hinduism here because through the repetition of the Satnam, the repetition of these words, the repetition of this mantra, the person is being able to, by repeating this, they are beginning to realize the all-pervading supreme reality, meaning that they are, once again, the Satnam is both a word having a meaning, but it's also a repetition of it that allows them to sink into a deeper insight, to have those moments of awareness, not just the knowledge, but the awareness of the all-pervading supreme reality. And again, it's weird because they have a lot of these elements that feel a little bit like Islam, a little touch of Christianity, but one of the things that they do is they repeat this mantra over and over again to get their minds to be aware of the all-pervading supreme reality, so that when they die, they'll escape the wheel of samsara. Okay, so for them, they're not shooting for salvation necessarily the way we would. Their salvation is getting free from this world. So anyway, it's a very, very interesting combination. The strengths of Sikhism as it comes to actually being able to maybe share faith with them. Their founder had a strong belief in a deity, so they did have some concept of that, but more similar to Allah, a distant God. Salvation is through submission to God, but also the importance of prayers. They have a strong reverence for their sacred writings and believing that those writings were something that was very, very important to them. Their founder recognized the value of the grace of God, and he actually taught about that as well, but once again, not the same grace that led Christ to the cross, but still some concept of the fact that salvation can't just be on our own merits. And they denounce any form of idolatry. But once again, their weaknesses, the weaknesses have to do with, besides again, the supreme being is somewhere between Brahman and Allah. Definitely not the Christian God, but kind of this supreme mystical force being that's more real than Brahman, but less real than Allah. But either way, it's mystical and out there. Once again, salvation, really, the concept of salvation is being a Sikh and doing Sikh things, but really the endless repetition of Satnam brings about absorption into God after the many reincarnations that they go to. So, as I said, it's a weird blending. There's an idea of helpless fatalism, that there's really certain things you can't do anything about because they've got a little touch of karma going on as well. And the Adi Granth, that holy book, is not available to everyone. It's kept in a very holy, sacred place, and it's often an object of worship. They will, even though they don't believe in idol worship, there is practices that bend almost toward the worship of the Adi Granth. And once again, they have a very mingled, mixed religion, very syncretistic, that, it's hard to nail down exactly what their beliefs are. So, once again, Sikhism is a very unusual religion, and it's so next time you see one of these people and you see wearing the orange turban thing going on, at least you know a little bit about what it is they're teaching and believing. And if God were to give you an opportunity to speak to them, you'll understand a little bit of what their beliefs are and knowing how to move them toward faith in God. Now, many people, they kind of worship Guru Nanak, but that's not as common. They don't really see him as, it says I said he's worshipped as God, but he's worshipped as we worship God. They don't say he is God, but they worship him in a way that we would worship God, singing songs of praise to him and such. So anyway, as I said, just a little taste, a little touch on what Sikhism teaches. And there's much, much more that can be learned about Sikhism. If you decide to do your paper on Sikhism, you would have some excellent, excellent opportunities to dig more deeply into this as well. So we'll talk to you again next time. Look forward to hearing from you about any questions you may have.